The feared commander. Commander Lyra Vorax stood motionless on the command deck of the Starbreaker, her imposing silhouette framed by the viewport that displayed the vast starfield beyond. 7 feet tall, with scaled azure skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns when her emotions intensified, she was an impressive sight, even among her own Ashari people. Her reputation, however, stretched far beyond mere physical presence. Commander, her second-in-command, Kazanar, approached with deliberate caution. The Centaurian delegation has withdrawn their petition for negotiation. Lyra didn't turn. Their reason? Kazanar swallowed, the ridge along his throat pulsing with nervous energy. They cited concerns about your involvement. A subtle smile curved the edge of Lyra's mouth. Of course they did. She finally turned, her golden eyes with their vertical pupils sweeping across the bridge crew. Each officer instantly focused on their station, avoiding direct eye contact. Set course for the Rixian Nebula. If the Centaurians lack the spine to face me, we'll proceed with the mapping expedition instead. Yes, Commander. Kazanar bowed deeply before retreating. The Starbreaker was the flagship of the Ashari Stellar Command, and Lyra had earned her position through a combination of tactical brilliance and an uncompromising nature that left little room for weakness, either in herself or those who served under her. Across 17 star systems, her name was spoken with a mixture of awe and dread. 3 galactic cycles ago, she had single-handedly defeated 6 Krell warriors in ritual combat when they attempted to claim an Ashari colony world. The Krell, massive arthropod warriors twice her size, had expected an easy victory. None survived to report what happened, but recordings of the battle became legendary. Lyra fought with cold precision, exploiting weaknesses in their exoskeletons that others hadn't even noticed existed. 2 cycles later, during the Meridian conflict, her ship had been surrounded by a Volcran battle fleet. Outnumbered 5-1, most commanders would have surrendered. Instead, Lyra initiated a daring maneuver, diving her ship toward the nearby star and using its gravitational field to slingshot around behind the Volcran forces. She destroyed 3 ships before they realized what had happened, then forced the admiral's surrender at the point of her ceremonial blade when she personally boarded his vessel. But it wasn't just her battle prowess that made others fear her. It was the stillness, the calculated way she observed and judged everyone she encountered. Rumor had it that she could sense deception like a predator smelling blood. 5 diplomatic envoys who had tried to manipulate negotiations with the Ashari had mysteriously found themselves stripped of rank and credibility after meetings with Commander Vorax. Approaching the Rixian Nebula, Commander, reported the navigation officer. Unusual energy signature detected on the perimeter. Lyra moved to the sensor display, her long silver-white hair bound in an intricate braid that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. Magnify. The screen shifted to reveal a small vessel drifting near the nebula's boundary. Its design was unfamiliar, sleek but utilitarian, with none of the aggressive angles typical of warships. Unknown configuration, stated Kazanar, joining her at the display. Possibly a new Procyon design. No, Lyra's eyes narrowed. Scan for life signs. The science officer worked quickly. 1 occupant. Biological pattern matches. Human. She said this last word with obvious surprise. A murmur went through the bridge crew. Humans were relatively new to interstellar travel. Their civilization had achieved faster-than-light capability less than 50 Earth years ago, and they remained a curiosity in the wider galactic community, generally regarded as primitive but surprisingly adaptable. Lyra's expression darkened. They're in restricted space. Hail them. Moments passed with no response. Again, she ordered, her voice taking on a dangerous edge. Still nothing. Scan for damage. The science officer complied. Their communications array appears compromised. Power fluctuations throughout the vessel. Life support operating at minimal capacity. Lyra considered her options. Humans had no formal treaties with the Ashari. This lone vessel could be a spy, a lost explorer, or simply a fool who had strayed into dangerous territory. The safest course of action would be to destroy it and continue their mission. The nebula contained valuable resources that the Ashari had claimed, and they did not tolerate trespassers. "Weapons status," she demanded. "Charged and ready, Commander," replied the tactical officer with perhaps too much eagerness. The bridge fell silent, awaiting her command. Everyone present knew Lyra's reputation for decisiveness, and sometimes ruthlessness, when dealing with potential threats. "Prepare the tractor beam," she said finally. "Bring the vessel into Bay 3. Kaznar looked startled. "Commander, protocol for unauthorized vessels is—" "I'm aware of protocol." She cut him off with a glare that made him step back involuntarily. "If they're spying, I want to know what they know. If they're lost, they possess information about how they bypassed our boundary markers. Either way, I want answers before I decide their fate." "Yes, Commander." Kaznar bowed again, deeper this time. As the tractor beam engaged and slowly pulled the human ship toward the Starbreaker, Lyra watched the view screen with calculating intensity. Something about this encounter felt different. A premonition, perhaps, though she would never admit to such irrational notions. "Prepare a boarding party," she commanded. "Full containment protocols. I'll lead it myself." This announcement caused another ripple of surprise among the crew. Commander Vorax rarely involved herself directly in such minor incidents. Whatever her interest in this human vessel, it had captured her full attention. The small ship looked even more damaged up close. Scorch marks along one side suggested weapons fire, though whether from pirates or a military engagement wasn't clear. The airlock was standard design, easily bypassed by Ashari technology. Lyra led 4 armed guards into the vessel, environmental suits protecting them from any potential biological hazards. The interior was cramped by Ashari standards, with minimal accommodations. Scientific equipment filled much of the available space, alongside what appeared to be botanical samples in various containment units. Not a military vessel, then. They found the human in the cockpit, slumped over the controls. Male, according to their biological records, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing a simple gray uniform with patches indicating scientific rank rather than military. "He's alive," confirmed the medical officer after a quick scan. "Unconscious. Appears to be suffering from minor radiation exposure and dehydration." Lyra studied the human with piercing intensity. "Bring him to medical. Full containment. I want him conscious and able to answer questions as soon as possible." As they carried the unconscious human back to the Starbreaker, Lyra paused to examine a data pad that had fallen to the floor. The screen still displayed what appeared to be research notes about the nebula's unusual radiation patterns. A scientist, then, perhaps a researcher who had ventured too close to the phenomenon he was studying. Lyra tucked the pad into a containment pouch. Whatever this human was doing here, she would get the truth. No one, human or otherwise, entered Ashari territory without consequences. Back on the Starbreaker, Lyra received reports about the human ship while medical worked to stabilize him. "Research vessel, minimal weapons," Kaznar summarized. "Registered to the Earth Science Directorate as the Horizon. Designed for deep space exploration and cynobotanical studies." And yet, Lyra observed coldly, it somehow appeared in restricted space, past our boundary markers, with damaged communications that conveniently prevented us from questioning its presence. Kaznar shifted uncomfortably. "The damage appears genuine, Commander. Their logs indicate they were caught in an unexpected solar flare 3 days ago. They've been drifting since, with systems failing progressively. Logs can be falsified." Lyra dismissed. Her reputation for suspicion was well earned. In her experience, coincidences usually concealed deliberate actions, and trust was a luxury commanders couldn't afford. "Medical reports the human is regaining consciousness," announced a voice over the communication system. "Good." Lyra straightened, adjusting her uniform with precise movements. "I'll question him myself." As she strode through the corridors of her ship, crew members hurried to clear her path. None wanted to delay the commander when her expression carried that particular intensity, the hunter moving in for answers, regardless of the resistance she might encounter. The medical bay doors opened automatically at her approach. Inside, the human lay on an examination table, restraints ready but not yet activated. His eyes were open now, dark brown and alert despite his weakened condition. He watched her enter without visible fear, unusual for anyone facing Commander Vorax for the first time. "I am Commander Lyra Vorax of the Asheri Stellar Command," she announced, her translator converting her words to standard galactic common. "You have trespassed in restricted space. Explain yourself." The human studied her for a moment before responding, his gaze direct in a way that made several of the medical staff look uncomfortable. Few dared to hold Lyra's gaze for more than a brief moment. "Dr. Carter Reed," he replied, his voice steady despite his condition. "Botanist with the Earth Science Directorate. I was studying radiation-resistant flora when my ship was damaged by a solar event. Navigation and communications failed. I've been adrift for days." He paused, then added, "Thank you for the rescue." Lyra's expression didn't change. This was not a rescue, human. It was an interception. "You are in violation of Ashari territorial boundaries." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the human's face. "Ashari? I had no idea. Our charts show this region as unclaimed space." "Your charts are wrong," Lyra stated flatly. "This nebula and the surrounding sector have been under Ashari protection for 3 generations. Dr. Reed attempted to sit up but winced as pain shot through his side. The medical officer moved to assist but stopped at Lyra's sharp glance. "Commander," Reed said, settling back, "I assure you my presence here is accidental. I'm a scientist, not a spy or trespasser." "That remains to be determined." Lyra stepped closer, intentionally using her height to intimidate. Most species found the Ashari imposing, with their tall frames, scaled skin, and predatory eyes. She had used this to her advantage in countless negotiations and interrogations. The human, however, showed remarkably little fear. He met her gaze with what appeared to be scientific curiosity rather than intimidation. "Your bioluminescent patterns," he observed suddenly. "They're quite remarkable. Do they always intensify when you're focusing intently, or is that a specific emotional response?" Lyra blinked, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected question. Her scales had indeed begun to glow more brightly, a response she normally controlled perfectly. "You will answer my questions, not pose your own." She recovered swiftly, her voice hardening. "Why were you studying this particular nebula?" Reed seemed to recognize his misstep. "My apologies. The Rixian Nebula contains unique radiation signatures that have produced extraordinary mutations in plant life on nearby planetary systems. My research focuses on how these adaptations might benefit agricultural development on radiation-damaged worlds." His answer was detailed, specific, and matched the data they'd recovered from his ship. Lyra found this irritating. She preferred when suspects lied. It gave her leverage. "You will remain under guard while we verify your story," she declared. "If you are indeed what you claim, arrangements will be made for your return to human space." "And if not?" Reed asked calmly. The corner of Lyra's mouth curved slightly. "Then you will learn why most species prefer not to test Ashari hospitality." With that, she turned and left the medical bay, issuing orders for the human to be transferred to secure quarters once medical cleared him. As the doors closed behind her, she heard the human doctor ask one of the medical staff about Ashari biology. Even facing potential imprisonment or worse, his scientific curiosity remained intact. Odd behavior. Most species reacted to her with immediate deference or fear. This human was different. The thought troubled her more than she cared to admit. An unexpected meeting. Dr. Carter Reed sat on the edge of the narrow bed in his guest quarters, a thinly veiled euphemism for a cell, though a comfortable one. 3 days had passed since his encounter with Commander Vorax. During that time, he'd been questioned repeatedly about his research, Earth's interest in the nebula, and whether he had prior knowledge of Ashari territorial claims. The door slid open without warning, revealing the imposing figure of Commander Vorax. She entered alone, which surprised him. Previous interrogations had always included at least 2 armed guards. "Dr. Reed," she acknowledged, her vertical pupils expanding slightly to adjust to the dimmer lighting of his quarters. "Commander," he responded, standing out of habit rather than deference. "Have you come to a conclusion about my fate?" Her expression remained unreadable, though he noticed the faint luminescent patterns along her neck flicker briefly. "Your story appears consistent with the evidence. Your ship's logs confirm the solar event, and we verified the human star charts indeed show this region as unclaimed space." Carter nodded, relieved but not entirely surprised. "Thank you for being thorough. I understand the need for caution." "Do you?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him with that penetrating gaze he was beginning to recognize as her default expression. "Most would find our methods excessive. Most haven't spent years studying alien ecosystems," he replied with a small smile. "Caution is what keeps xenobiologists alive. Assumptions are deadly." For a moment, he thought he saw something like appreciation in her golden eyes. "Walk with me," she commanded suddenly, turning toward the door. Carter hesitated only briefly before following. This was the first time he'd been invited to leave his quarters without an escort of armed guards. As they stepped into the corridor, he noticed crew members quickly averting their eyes or finding reasons to change direction. Subtle behaviors that spoke volumes about their commander's reputation. "Your ship cannot be repaired," Lyra informed him as they walked. "The radiation damage to its core systems is beyond our capabilities." "I suspected as much," Carter sighed. "It wasn't designed for prolonged exposure to the levels in the nebula." "Which raises the question of why you ventured so close." Carter glanced at her profile. "Science often requires calculated risks, Commander. The potential benefits outweighed the danger, or so I thought before the solar flare." They entered a lift that carried them upward through the massive ship. When the doors opened again, Carter found himself on what appeared to be an observation deck. The entire outer wall was transparent, offering a spectacular view of the nebula they orbited, swirling clouds of cosmic dust illuminated by the radiation of distant stars. "Beautiful," he murmured involuntarily. Lyra moved to stand beside him, her tall frame casting a shadow over his shorter human form. "You see beauty where others see danger. The two aren't mutually exclusive," he pointed out. "Some of Earth's most dangerous predators are also its most beautiful creatures." "Is that how you see the Ashari?" "As predators?" The question contained a subtle trap, but Carter wasn't intimidated. "I see the Ashari as I see any species, complex, evolved for their environment, and shaped by their history. Predator is too simplistic a term." She turned to face him fully. "You show remarkable calm for someone in your position, Doctor. Most aliens I encounter struggle to maintain composure in my presence." Carter chuckled softly. "I faced down a carnivorous plant that could dissolve bones in seconds. After that, most intimidation tactics seem theatrical." He realized immediately he might have overstepped. But instead of anger, Lyra's response was unexpected. A short, sharp sound that took him a moment to recognize as laughter. "You are either exceptionally brave or dangerously foolish," she observed, the luminescent patterns along her scales brightening slightly. "I've been called both," he admitted, "though I prefer to think of it as scientific objectivity." "And what does your scientific objectivity tell you about your current situation?" Carter considered the question carefully. "That I'm at the mercy of a civilization technologically superior to my own, represented by a commander with a fearsome reputation, who nonetheless hasn't harmed me despite ample justification under your laws. That suggests complex motives I don't fully understand yet." Lyra's expression shifted subtly. "Perceptive. May I ask a question of my own?" When she inclined her head in permission, he continued, "Why did you bring me here?" "To this observation deck." "To observe," she replied simply. Then, after a pause, Your reaction tells me more than hours of interrogation." Before Carter could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. Lyra moved instantly, touching a communication device on her wrist. "Report," she demanded. "Unidentified vessels approaching from Sector 7. Came Kaznar's voice. 3 ships, void crawler configuration. Lyra's expression hardened. "Pirates. Battle stations. I'll be there immediately." She turned to Carter. "Return to your quarters." "Wait," he said quickly. "My research data, it's still on my ship. If pirates board it, your ship is in our hold. They cannot access it." She was already moving toward the lift. "Commander," he called after her. "My specimens contain several highly toxic compounds, if handled improperly." She paused, turning back. "Explain." "Sample Container 4 contains spores that, if released, could cause severe respiratory distress. Container 7 has acidic sap that will burn through most standard containment materials. If pirates are looking for valuable cargo and start breaking into containers." Lyra studied him for a moment, then made a decision. "Come, you will identify these hazards for my security team." The command deck was a flurry of organized activity when they arrived. Officers called out reports while tactical displays showed 3 angular ships approaching rapidly. "Void crawlers confirmed," reported the tactical officer. "Weapons charged. Shields at maximum," added another. Kaznar approached Lyra immediately, casting a suspicious glance at Carter. "Commander, why is the human here?" "He has information about potential hazards in his cargo," Lyra replied curtly. "Status of the approaching vessels." "They've hailed us," Kaznar reported. "Standard pirate demands: surrender valuable cargo or be boarded." "Put them through," Lyra ordered, moving to the center of the command deck. The main view screen activated, revealing a reptilian face with mottled green-gray scales and vertical yellow eyes. "A Saurian," Carter noted with interest. "A Shari vessel." The pirate began, then stopped abruptly, his expression changing from confident to wary. "Commander Vorax." "You know me," Lyra stated, her voice dangerously quiet. "Yet you still approach my ship with weapons charged." The Saurian shifted uncomfortably. "We were unaware this was your command. And now that you are aware." The pirate captain seemed to be reconsidering his options. "Perhaps we can negotiate." "There is nothing to negotiate." Lyra cut him off. "You will power down your weapons and withdraw, or I will demonstrate why crossing my path is considered suicidal in most sectors." Carter watched the exchange with fascination. The commander's reputation clearly extended beyond military circles if pirates recognized her on sight. The Saurian hesitated, then barked an order to someone off-screen. "We meant no disrespect, Commander. We'll withdraw immediately." "A wise decision," Lyra replied coldly. The communication ended, and the tactical display showed the pirate vessels beginning to turn away. "They're retreating too easily," Kaznar observed with suspicion. Lyra nodded. "Agreed. Maintain battle readiness." She turned to Carter. "Now, Doctor, about those hazardous materials." She was interrupted by a sudden alert from the sensor officer. "Commander, small craft detected launching from the lead vessel." "Boarding pods," Lyra realized instantly. "They're attempting to create a diversion." She turned to Kaznar. "Intercept those pods. Security teams to the cargo bay." "They're targeting our lower decks," reported the tactical officer, "including Cargo Bay 3 where we're holding the human vessel." Carter stepped forward. "Commander, if they breach those containment units, you'll accompany the security team." Lyra decided. "Identify the hazards quickly." She glanced at Kaznar. "He remains your responsibility." "Yes, Commander," Kaznar acknowledged, clearly unhappy with the assignment. As Carter followed Kaznar and a team of armed Ashari toward the cargo bay, explosions rocked the ship. The pirates had begun their assault. "Stay behind us," Kaznar ordered as they approached the cargo bay doors. "If you attempt to escape or assist the intruders, you will be shot immediately." "I have no desire to be captured by pirates." Carter assured him. Particularly Saurian ones. They have a reputation for selling scientists to the highest bidder. The cargo bay doors opened to reveal chaos. 2 pirate boarding pods had breached the hull, and armed Saurians were exchanging fire with the HFY security forces. Carter's ship sat in the center of the bay, its main hatch already forced open. "They're inside already," Carter warned, ducking behind a cargo container as energy weapons fire streaked overhead. "How many specimens are we concerned about?" Kaznar demanded, returning fire at a pirate position. 4 primary containers, all in the main laboratory section, Carter explained quickly. "If they're looking for valuables, that's where they'll go first. The equipment appears expensive." Kaznar gave rapid orders, directing his team to flank the human vessel while maintaining cover. "You stay here." "With respect," Carter countered, "I can identify the dangerous containers faster than your team can search for them. Every moment increases the risk of contamination." The HFY officer hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Stay behind me. If you run, you'll shoot me," Carter finished. "I understand." They advanced toward the ship under covering fire from the rest of the security team. Inside, they found 2 Saurian pirates ransacking the laboratory, pulling open drawers and containers. "Stop," Carter called out sharply. "Those containers are biohazardous." The pirates spun around, weapons raised. Kaznar fired immediately, dropping 1 pirate with a precise shot. The second ducked behind a console, returning fire. "The red container," Carter pointed urgently. "They've already damaged the seal." A fine mist was beginning to leak from a container the pirates had pried open. Kaznar fired again, forcing the remaining pirate into the open, where another HFY officer's shot found its mark. "Containment breach," Kaznar reported into his communicator. "Unknown biological agent released." Carter moved quickly to a cabinet, retrieving an emergency kit. "Everyone out. These spores cause paralysis of the respiratory system." He pulled out a mask for himself, offering another to Kaznar. "This won't stop them completely, but it will buy us time." The HFY officer hesitated, clearly suspicious of Carter's sudden initiative, but the spreading mist forced his decision. He took the mask and ordered his team to evacuate. "We need to seal the ship," Carter explained as they retreated. "The spores will be contained by your cargo bay filtration system if we can close the breach point." "Engineering, emergency containment protocol in Cargo Bay 3, Kaznar ordered into his communicator as they cleared the human vessel's hatch. "Seal all ventilation to that section immediately." Metal barriers began sliding down around the perimeter of the cargo bay as emergency protocols activated. The remaining pirates found themselves trapped, caught between HFY security forces and the spreading contamination. "Surrender or face biological contamination," Kaznar announced over the bay's communication system. "You have 30 seconds. The pirates threw down their weapons almost immediately. As engineering teams in protective gear worked to contain the spore release, Carter found himself under the intense scrutiny of Commander Vorax, who had arrived shortly after the situation was brought under control. "You aided my security team," she observed, her tone neutral but her eyes calculating. "Despite the opportunity for escape during the confusion." Carter shrugged. "Escaping to where?" "Of a pirate vessel. Besides, I'm responsible for those specimens. I couldn't let them cause harm through mishandling." "Kaznar reports you placed yourself at risk to warn about the contamination." "Professional habit," Carter explained. "When you work with potentially lethal organisms, you develop certain reflexes." Lyra studied him with that unnerving intensity. "Most species act in self-interest when threatened." "Self-preservation and ethical responsibility aren't mutually exclusive," Carter countered. "I'd be a poor scientist if I allowed my work to harm others through negligence." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing, the luminescent patterns along her scales shifting in what Carter was beginning to recognize as thoughtfulness. "You continue to confound expectations, Dr. Reed," she said finally. "Report to medical for decontamination." We will discuss your situation further once this incident is fully resolved." As Carter walked away, escorted by two guards who now seemed less vigilant than before, he couldn't help feeling that something had shifted in his relationship with the formidable commander. Whether that would work to his advantage remained to be seen. Alliance under fire. The aftermath of the pirate attack brought unexpected changes to Carter's status aboard the Starbreaker. His quarters were upgraded from secure detention to a proper guest cabin, and his access restrictions were relaxed to allow movement through certain sections of the ship under minimal supervision. Most significant, however, was Commander Vorax's request, phrased as a command, that he assist in cataloging his research materials, which had been moved to one of the HFY science laboratories. "Your knowledge of these specimens is unique," she had explained during their most recent meeting. "Until arrangements can be made for your return to human space, you may as well continue your work under our supervision." Carter recognized the offer for what it was, part practical solution, part evaluation. The commander was still assessing him, determining what kind of threat or asset he might represent. He accepted without hesitation. Continued confinement would have been far worse than working under observation. 3 days into this new arrangement, Carter was carefully documenting the properties of a radiation-resistant succulent when Commander Vorax entered the laboratory. The two HFY scientists working nearby immediately straightened to attention, their postures rigid with obvious tension. "Commander," Carter acknowledged, more relaxed than his HFY counterparts, but still respectful. "Did you come to check on our progress?" "In part," she replied, dismissing the other scientists with a gesture. Once they had left, she approached Carter's workstation. "These plants, they adapt to radiation levels that would kill most organic life." "Yes," Carter confirmed, indicating the succulent under examination. "This species has evolved a unique cellular structure that converts radiation into energy rather than suffering damage from it. Essentially, it thrives where other plants die." Lyra studied the plant with newfound interest. "And this has applications for damaged environments. Potentially revolutionary ones," Carter explained, warming to his favorite subject. "Planets suffering from industrial pollution, nuclear incidents, or natural radiation events could be rehabilitated using modified versions of these adaptive mechanisms, including worlds damaged by war," Lyra observed. Carter nodded. "Particularly those. Earth had several regions rendered uninhabitable by nuclear conflicts in our past. These adaptive properties could help restore such environments within decades rather than centuries." The commander was silent for a moment, the patterns along her scales shifting subtly. "Your research is more significant than you initially indicated. I didn't think botanical research would interest an HFY military commander," Carter admitted with a slight smile. "Many assumptions are made about what interests me," Lyra replied, her tone carrying an edge of something Carter couldn't quite identify. Perhaps bitterness. "Walk with me, Doctor." They left the laboratory together, drawing curious glances from passing crew members. By now, most of the ship knew about the human who had somehow earned limited freedom aboard their vessel, though rumors varied wildly as to why Commander Vorax tolerated his presence. "Your reputation precedes you throughout the ship," Carter observed as they walked. "Everyone seems terrified of attracting your attention." "Fear ensures obedience," Lyra stated simply. "Does it? Or does it just ensure compliance until fear is removed?" She gave him a sidelong glance. "You question my leadership methods." "Not questioning, merely observing," Carter clarified. "On Earth, we've found that leadership based solely on fear tends to collapse when the feared figure is absent. And what would you suggest instead, Doctor? That I befriend my subordinates? Hold communal discussions about military decisions?" Carter chuckled. "Hardly, but there's a difference between respect born of competence and terror born of unpredictability. One inspires loyalty even in your absence." Lyra stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "You speak with remarkable freedom for someone in your position. Would you prefer I lie to avoid offense? That seems counterproductive to both of us." The corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. Few beings in this galaxy would dare speak to me so directly. Perhaps that's the problem, Carter suggested quietly. Before Lyra could respond, her communication device activated with an urgent signal. Commander to the bridge immediately. Priority alert. Her expression shifted instantly to professional alertness. Come, she ordered Carter, surprising him. This concerns you as well. On the command deck, Kaznar was reviewing tactical displays with obvious concern. He straightened when Lyra entered, glancing briefly at Carter with poorly concealed disapproval. Report, Lyra demanded. Long-range sensors have detected a fleet approaching from the hegemony border, Kaznar explained. 6 vessels, heavy cruiser class. They've transmitted identification as the 7th Hegemony Enforcement Squadron. Carter felt a chill. The Procyon hegemony was notorious among spacefaring species, an expansionist empire with a particularly brutal approach to territorial disputes. Their stated purpose? Lyra asked, her voice level, but her scales beginning to pulse with brighter patterns, a signal of heightened alertness Carter had learned to recognize. They claimed to be pursuing fugitives who violated their borders, Kaznar replied. Specifically, they're demanding we surrender the human researcher and all materials collected from hegemony territory. All eyes turned to Carter, who felt his stomach drop. That's absurd, he protested. I've never entered hegemony space. My research permits explicitly excluded their territory because of diplomatic tensions with Earth. Communicate this to the hegemony vessels, Lyra ordered. Already attempted, Commander, Kaznar responded. They insist their evidence is conclusive and demand immediate compliance. They've given us 2 hours to surrender the human and his research before they take appropriate enforcement action. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Prepare the ship for potential combat. Alert our patrol vessels in nearby sectors. Commander, Carter interjected, this isn't just about me. The hegemony has been trying to acquire adaptive radiation technology for years. Earth has refused to share it because of their history of weaponizing scientific advances. Explain, Lyra demanded. These plants could be modified to absorb radiation from targeted sites, potentially including military installations, power plants, or population centers. They could create localized radiation dead zones that would cripple technology or create inhabitable areas. Which is why they're fabricating charges against you, Lyra concluded. A pretext to seize your research. Carter nodded grimly. It wouldn't be the first time they've used such tactics. Lyra turned to Kaznar.